Welcome to M Squared. I'm Dan Ryan.
I'm Mike Bloomfield.
And I'm Anthony Rapp.
Mike Depalma from Datto here joining us today. He's the Vice President of Business Development. Came in from Connecticut to come visit us here in Staten Island. So, Mike, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a good time.
All right. It's a good time. We haven't even got started.
I've been here for 20 minutes. I saw the whole tour. I got everything from you guys.
You got a good voice for radio. It's better than ours.
He's got a good. Look, his hair
that's
might
the
be
way
better than yours.
It's competitive.
I got a lot more grades.
So not in the beard. That's
And Dan's is a lot favorite.
His is hair plugs.
It's good money, though.
So I heard that he's taking the rant from you today.
Let him take it.
All right, let's move on to Ryan's rant.
Ryan's rant.
And now, for today's Raps Rant. Raps Rant.
So typically, Rap has some rant of the day that he shares, but because we've been recording our podcast over here, we're going to do the Ryan's rant. My rant is the speed cameras here in Staten Island. They are insane. They're out of control, and I don't mind the technology behind it. I think it's conceptually a good idea, but having a 25 mile per hour speed limit is nuts. And it's literally for me to pull around the corner, past the bagel store, to get from your house, your office to my house is 3 minutes. And I racked up $200 in tickets in a week. So that's my
sounds like a personal
I don't
problem.
like the speed cameras.
That sounds like you speed.
I don't speed.
Clearly, you speed. You have $200 in speed tickets.
I have
You
a
clearly
hybrid. I have a
speed.
hybrid.
That doesn't mean
It's half
That
an
again
electric
sounds
car.
like a personal problem.
So I am going to
go
say
back
this is a marketing and branding podcast, and when Rap does a rant, they're typically on topic.
I was just grumpy.
Your rant is not on topic today.
No, it is. It's
I'm going to
it's part
say,
of the Vision Zero brand.
well,
That's true.
Okay, so you have a problem with the Vision Zero brand.
No, not particularly. I
Just the speed
appreciate-
cameras part.
I appreciate people saving lives. I believe that the speed limit, even though there's different studies that have been shared publicly, that if the speed limit's 25
Yep.
on a busy street and I go 36, that 1 mile over 10,
Yep.
that's a ticket. That's a little rough.
So it's
And I
so
don't
if
like
you
it
look at the
just
international
'cause I gotta
highway
pay.
safety statistics, 25 is not really is lower than where they want you to, but they make it 25 because that gives you till 35. Because the difference between a speed limit of 35 and then giving you a ticket at 46 is the difference between life and death. So the lower the speed is, the more chance. If you get hit by doing a car, except in front of my house, doing under 25 miles an hour, you typically will live. It's going to be it's the difference between you living and dying.
And full transparency, Dan, even though I can't see you, I know you're there. Full transparency. In Mike's former life, Mike was the guy who developed, implemented, and put the speed cameras up all over wherever it was he lived prior to Staten Island. So that's why he's very...
I did that in Staten Island.
Oh, you did
think
in
it's
Staten
more-
Island?
Yeah, I worked for the company was based in Staten Island, got merged with a organization in Arizona. I think I moved to Arizona, but yeah, it was. I started here.
Out of the $55, Mike got a $10 VIG every time you
Oh,
got
I
a ticket.
wish. Oh my God,
yeah.
I wish.
He's got a little pop off.
That would have been amazing. I'd have a lot more statues in here.
No, actually, I think it's more, my rant is probably with myself because I'm more pissed off that I keep forgetting that it's there or I'm not paying attention to the waves.
Or your inability to
And now I
drive
gotta
correctly.
Throw $200 at the city for something else because there's a speed light more per capita in Staten Island than any other borough.
Well, I mean, if it's a 3-minute drive, you were saying, just budget 4 minutes and go to speed limit.
Thank you.
It's just 1 more minute.
Or just walk.
Wait, yeah, just walk.
Or just walk. I mean, Dan,
I could do that, but
Yeah.
why? Why would you do that?
why would I do that?
Why
Staten
not?
Island.
I
Let's
was
throw
in
another car.
Kansas a couple years ago driving, speed limit 75 miles an hour. I was going 78, and I saw it on the Waze. There was going to be a cop, and the cop puts his lights on. He's going to pull me over. I'm like, what's going on here? And I was like, you know what? They don't like Italians out here. This could be like a My Cousin Vinny thing. You know what I mean?
Well,
And
you're
he
in
gave
the
me
right
a
spot
warning.
for
And
Italians now.
he was like, you're going 78. I was like, sorry? I didn't even know that would have been speeding. So like the speeding laws change everywhere.
Well, in Arizona, it's actually the speeding is based on reasonable and prudent. The speed limit signs don't actually matter. It's based on what everyone else is doing, and the cop decides is the speed limit.
That seems fair.
That's fair. That's all I want.
So
Completely arbitrary.
So it's complete so you're like if a cop decides there was traffic or it's raining and everyone else is doing 55, even the speed limit is 75, he's just decided the speed limit is 55.
Yeah, but you can't give the camera a PBA card and get out
That's
of
true.
that.
I was gonna say out here, everybody we'd just be flying.
But
all
you
over.
don't. You don't get any points. It's just a $50 ticket, and you move on. No points.
You want to pay for me?
No, I just don't speed. You want me to tell you how not to get the speeding ticket? There is a secret. Don't speed. You know how you're going to get the red light camera ticket? Don't run the red light. It's very easy.
You're the guy with the Audi. I have a hybrid. Who's speeding?
You realize
I
he
don't-
thinks we're lying to him right now, right? He thinks this is all a joke. He has no idea what's happening.
Buddy, I'm going to be driving so slow driving
That's
out of
it.
here. That's all I need.
Well, you know, being in your position, we're gonna
Eventually
we're
we're
gonna
gonna segue to why
segue
you're
now.
here.
Being in your position, you travel a lot.
Oh, every week somewhere, yeah.
How many weeks this year will you be traveling?
I'd probably say 40 weeks out of the year I'll be somewhere.
Crazy,
Maybe
insane.
like that.
And now, do you rent a car normally, or are you Ubering back and forth?
I'm usually Uber or Lyft everywhere.
Okay.
It's just easier, unless I'm like, it's a far drive or something like that, but almost always I don't bother with it. Mostly because I don't feel like when you're dropping it off at the airport, like I usually fly out early. I don't need that extra step to go drop the car off
Right.
and all that, yeah.
Right, because that was when I used to travel at work. That was the one. Uber and Lyft wasn't around back then, so you would rent cars, and I'm old, and driving in all these random places and different roles, and
Yeah.
you know, I was in Missouri and it was snowing, and it was like it came to a halt, like it was a flurry, and they don't know how to drive, and like I'm like, please, the highway closed down for like an hour because there was a flurry.
Yeah,
That's
it's like
how we-
Atlanta.
When we lived back and forth between New York and New Orleans, we went down to New Orleans. It snowed for like an hour, and the expressway was shut down. There's accidents everywhere. It was a disaster. I think a person died. I think from a flurry. But that's not a joke. But let's get back to M Squared. Mike Depalma again from Datto. This is a podcast about building brands. So can you tell us a little bit about your career and background?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been with Datto about 8 years, but I've worked in a lot of different industries. My first job out of college, I was selling insurance for New York Life, and this was early 2000s when you're calling people in their kitchens and trying to sell them life insurance. So that was a pretty horrible experience, but it was good because now I could pick up the phone and call anybody, right? You get hung up on 1,000 times a day. And then I went into banking. Then I was in construction management. I did business development for a company that we did hospitals and things
Italians
like that.
go like this. Construction
Did
management.
construction. Yeah, that's how I got all
You're
my
Staten
nice
Island. You got
suits.
to do it as it is. You know what I mean?
And then, then I wound up at Datto kind of randomly. Datto popped up in Norwalk. I'm from Norwalk, Connecticut. And it popped up, and all of a sudden, a bunch of people I grew up with were working there. And I didn't know. I didn't even have a tech background, you know. But it was growing like crazy. And it was a little startup. And at the time, I was driving my daughter. I think Mike knows. My oldest daughter's deaf, and she was going to a school up near Hartford. Now, if you don't know Connecticut, that's about an hour and a half drive every day. I would drive up there and then drive down to New Haven where I was working. And my boss was cool with it, but I was coming in at 9 o'clock, 9:30 every day. So a buddy of mine was like, why don't you come work for Datto? They have a West Coast book of business open. You can work from 11 to 8. Perfect. I did some research, got through the interview, and now been with Datto ever since and was able to, so it's a very weird story of how to get there. But got in as a sales rep and then moved over to business development about a year later. And just stuck around. It's like Game of Thrones, last one standing. They made me a VP.
when you started at Datto, what number were you? How many employees were there at that point?
About 300.
300. And that was how many years ago?
That was 2015.
Okay. So here we are, 2023, Kaseya acquisition of Datto, two separate companies, but one umbrella.
Yep.
How many employees do you have now?
About 4,800.
Wild.
It's wild. Yeah, and if you go in, you can go into our little internal system and see what rank you are left. So a bunch of people have left. I'm in the top 100, like the earliest 100 people.
Oh, in seniority?
Yeah, seniority.
So
people that
you
have
get
left.
vacation. You get to pick vacation before others.
Oh yeah. Yeah, when you travel 40 weeks out of the year, you get to take vacation. Yeah, so. and that's my benefit to my wife. I always say because I get all the airline points, right? So when we're flying, and I say, my kids are flying we went to Hawaii. And it was all paid for with points. I said, yeah, well, don't complain when daddy's traveling when you're sitting there flying to Hawaii. I went on one plane in my life before I was 21. My kids are flying all over the country.
So and does somebody give you a hard time about not submitting your expenses still?
It's the bane of my existence. And now I have to approve everybody else's expenses, and I just kind of fly through them. But if somebody else catches them, well, why did you approve this? I'm like, I don't really look at it. Nobody's listening to this, right?
No, the mic's not even plugged in.
No. No, I scrutinize every single expense report.
When I was at the red light camera company and I was employee number 30. By the time I left, there was 900. But Goldman and Sachs dumped $500 million into the company. When they put $500 million in a company, policy change. Oh my God, expense reports were the worst. They had some program, like a website, I don't remember, where you have to go and put it through. The manager would have to approve it or kick it back to you. And it was like,
oh, it's 3 stages, yeah.
They want the receipts. I'm like, really? You need the receipt? Who's with you at lunch and dinner? And I'm like, oh my God, leave me alone.
Yeah, it is. It is intense. And it does, as you grow as a company, you have to do it that way, right? So, yeah, we have to put email addresses for everybody we take out. You got to itemize receipts. The worst is like hotels. You got to break down taxes.
The taxes
everything.
Is the worst part.
Well, they want you to break down taxes?
You have to. It's the way that the sales tax that comes out of the hotel rooms. Some of the systems will do it for you.
Yeah, not
like
this
ours doesn't. ours doesn't. So calculate. So one of our clients is Ocean Casino. So if we go out to Atlantic City for the weekend and we put in the expenses for the room, it automatically, thankfully, now calculates your taxes for you based on the amount of nights stayed and everything like that.
I was going to say, you don't travel with work. How do you know? I
do
realized you go to
travel
Oceans.
I travel with work.
Yeah, to AC. You go to Atlantic City.
Must
we
be
got clients
nice.
in Texas, Chicago. I bounce around. In and
All right,
out.
so red lights, taxes, CRMs, we're all over the board here. Let's talk about what Datto does, because I know Mike is geeking out literally because this is his world.
Yeah.
But what your company does affects a lot of companies, and a lot of companies don't know what you do. So could you just explain?
Yeah, one of the things that, now we've grown, we were acquired by $6.2 billion and the company's big, but we sell only through managed service providers. So Techie Geek, for instance, right? So that's why you don't see us brand that much, because if you're a small business, you can't come buy something through us. You have to go through somebody like Mike, right? But the core product, and now we've got about 40 different products, but the core product is business continuity. So essentially, instead of just a backup product, it takes a full image of a server. So if a server were to go down, you could actually fail over to our device. So it essentially allows you to keep your business up and running. And the guy who created it was 22 when he founded it.
Of course.
Right at 20, it's unbelievable. 22 years old, he's out of college. This was 07. The recession was coming. He couldn't find a job. He says, I'm going to build my own thing. Starts building these devices by hand, right, in his parents' basement. Starts growing. He decided the business model was going to be, I'm going to find managed service providers. It was an easier way to expand instead of going individually to find, instead of going and finding 100 businesses to sell it to, you find 10 MSPs, they do it. And he sold it. We bought by a Vista equity firm for $1.2 billion. So and he owned 70% of the company.
God bless him.
So at 35 years old, he was a billionaire. Now he builds fighting robots.
Wow.
So he was on the board of directors. He built this big warehouse in Norwalk, and you can go. I could get you the link to it's like the most popular YouTube channel for fighting robots. He's got bleachers set up. People come from all over. I bring my kids there.
Literally a billionaire with his toys.
It's exactly right.
He's a billionaire with his toys, and following him it's almost like Bam Margera, except without the drugs. Where Bam Margera would invite everyone, you want to use my Audi? Go ahead, take my R8. Like, people tell me he's like, Audi R8. He'll be like, oh, yeah, you can take it, use it. It's like his playgrounding. He loves having people there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's the best. Yeah. And I still see him around. He bought a plane with all his money at Virgin Atlantic.
Well, you have to have at least one.
He got one, right? And then when if you own a plane, you like rent pilots. Like, you don't have a full-time pilot. It's like you get a certain amount of hours. But he didn't like that, so he's got a full-time pilot. Dude has one client.
He's better than you. You don't have a full-time pilot.
I don't have $1 billion.
You're still using NetJets.
You got
Cheapo.
yeah.
And the pictures of looking where he took it from, right? When I looked at Austin's story, you see the picture of Jeff Bezos and in that first like Amazon with like the Amazon written on like shoe polish on the wall. When at DagoCons, when they showed pictures of Austin, like people's data was in the basement on a metal rack with servers, and he had like fans blowing on it, and he was like off-site data center backup, and like people were paying him, and they had no idea their data is like literally in this guy's basement.
Yeah.
I mean, did he know he was building a brand then? Was it something that he was just good at as far as like as a skill set, and it just grew? Or
the way he tells it is he's a very interesting guy. So obviously he's a brilliant technician to create something like this, but he always did have a vision towards it. Like, he had this goal that I'm going to create this company, and literally built it. It was like him, his little brother. So his little brother was still in college, a couple of his buddies, and he would be tech support too and do phony voices. So you wouldn't think it was him. He would do an English accent. You call data. I swear to God. And then and he had this vision, and it was very much once he started getting some money coming in, it was ultra growth mode, and he was just he became more of a business person. But what was interesting is as we grew, he decided he didn't really like it. That's one of the reasons why he sold. Like, he likes building things. He likes tinkering with things. And then he was spending his whole day sitting in boardrooms looking at EBITDA and all this stuff. And he said, well, why am I doing this? So he's like, I'll just do something else that's fun. But he did have a vision much bigger than, he was just going to build something so he didn't have to get a real job. He always had this in him that he said, I'm going to make it. And he saw a real gap in the market. It was right place, right time. That was when we saw the rise of like ransomware starting to come up. So a product like this was perfect. And he made the culture like this fun, kind of like googly. Like, if you go to our office, the one up in Rochester's got one of those slides that goes down from like the fourth floor to the first floor. That's why you're smiling.
That's why you're so happy. Look at you. Massages after lunch.
Oh, there's Nerf gun fights and Lego walls, and there's free lunch Fridays. It was one of those cool environments to attract like good young. That's what you have to do nowadays to get young tech talent, because you're competing against Google and all that stuff.
Right. Not only are you building a brand for selling the product, you're building a brand to get the talent to come and keep creating that product.
Exactly. And it's not like Connecticut's a hotspot for technology, right?
He was the first $1 billion like unicorn in Connecticut, right, Dago?
Yeah. It was the unicorn company is $1 billion valuation that's not public or privately held. Yeah, and he was the only one in the state of Connecticut on the tech side. It's an amazing story.
The office is amazing. Makes my office look like a joke. And again, being at DagoCon, and that's the things I love. They always tell the story, and like you kind of get vesting. And they talk about how the big thing there was who had the most monitors.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And there was like people, like, what was the record of the most monitors?
I don't even know. On average, these techs have 6 monitors, but I mean, there's some where it's like panoramic. Their whole desk is. I don't know.
Look at how excited he gets.
I know.
But you see the pictures, and it's just
he didn't
funny.
smile that big when his children were born. Just saying.
Yes,
just as a quick aside, when I moved into my new office, I was on a call with Mike. And I'm talking, and he keeps looking around. And he goes, I don't like those cords up there. That's how nitpicky Mike is.
Oh, yeah.
Because my cords just start hanging out. You remember that?
Of course I do. I do that everywhere. It's not
So
just
now
you.
if he comes, I got to like clean up like my mom's coming over.
But he does that in my house. I'm not kidding. He comes like, what is this?
What's
You
this
see that
cord?
cable over there?
I just did that at the Stown Board of Realtors. I fixed their conference room. I went for a meeting. I was like, what's this cord here?
And meanwhile, you charge me $300 to zip tie my Ethernet cable.
It's a brand, my friend.
It's a brand. That's exactly
Exactly
why
what
we do
he
the
did.
podcast.
That's how we became friends. We'll talk about that another time. But he charged me $300 for a zip tie.
He's getting money from your tickets. He's
Yep.
got zip ties. This guy's got a lot of streams of income coming in.
So we talked about mergers and acquisitions of your company. Where's the future going?
Yeah, I've been through a lot. When we started, I was there for the first round of funding. We then merged with a company called Autotask. So those came together. So I went through that merger. We got acquired by Vista. We went public, which was crazy. And then we got acquired by a company called Kaseya, who offers a vast array of security products. And so now we're no longer public. We're back into the private sector, owned by Kaseya. And it's been a while. That happened about 10 months ago. But the company is still in this ultra growth mode, probably even accelerated. I mean, we're adding hundreds of people every single month. We just opened an office down in Orlando. So that 4,500, 4,800 number that we have now, by the end of the year, it should be around 6,000, which is crazy because you're seeing a lot of layoffs in the tech space. But the space that we're in is just, I mean, look, I'll never say recession-proof, but when you're talking about security and you're talking about business continuity, every business needs to invest in it now. So it's a really good space to be in. So it is not slowing down. It actually probably accelerated after we got acquired.
Now, you said you only sell to MSPs. That's correct.
Now, Kaseya actually sells to to businesses as well. The Dago side of the house only sells to MSPs.
Yeah, there's a couple of products in the Kaseya side that do, but those are for enterprise level. All the other products are small, mid-sized business.
MSP.
So for all the non-geeks in the
Right.
universe, why don't you tell them what an MSP is?
Doesn't matter. Just go to techiegeek.com and learn about the IT
There's only one
superheroes.
that
IT
matters.
superheroes.
MSP is the acronym in the tech space. We love acronyms. Everything's an acronym. Managed service provider. So that's outsourced IT provider that helps a small business with business continuity, cybersecurity, help desk. Basically, takes over and protect their infrastructure.
So is your growth based on that growth as well? There's more MSPs that are coming out. There's more of a need for it.
Oh, 100%. When Data was founded in 2007, the model typically was break fix, meaning the project work. So you'd hire somebody like Mike, he'd come in and do some project work. As it evolved, businesses started to understand, well, I'd rather just outsource everything to you and not have to hire in-house IT people. And, we saw it slowly grow and then it exploded. And the pandemic actually really helped that because people were understanding, when it happened and everybody had to go work remote, they couldn't handle that in-house. The other problem we're seeing is there's a shortage in workforce in the tech space. So for a business owner, it makes a lot more sense to say, hey, I'm going to pay you, Mike, and have all of your resources to support my IT instead of trying to find somebody, hire them, hope they don't get pulled away, have to deal with all that. And so the growth, that's really what it's been. It's the growth in the MSP space that we've kind of rode the wave with because we sell only through them.
And I also say that Dago has helped with the growth in the space because they put their money into us. So we throw events all the time, lunch and learns, you've been to them, and those are thanks to market and development funds that Dago puts and investing us because they know by helping us to throw an event and create awareness, when our customer base grows, they grow.
So that's what I was going to ask you. So you're unique in that I think, they'll correct me if I'm wrong, but you're the first non-DTC brand we've had on the show. So your model is much different than a typical, direct-to-consumer sales pitch, direct-to-consumer marketing plan. What do you guys do? And Mike just touched on it. That's one of the things you do, obviously, is take care of your MSPs. But what are some of the other things you guys do internally that's allowing for such growth?
Yeah, it was interesting when I came over to Datto. It's you call the inside sales model. So it's not like I'm calling and trying to sell Dattos. I'm working with a book of business of MSPs. And so a lot of it, that MDF fund, Marketing Development Funds, has been a big push for us. But we're also trying to provide marketing materials for folks. We're doing sales trainings for folks. We're trying to give them all the tools that they need. So, for instance, we've got programs that actually will help you set up LinkedIn campaigns, ad campaigns, all of those things, because it makes more sense for us. We tried at one point a few years back to do some direct advertising to try to drive leads to our managed service providers, but it was too clunky. So we sponsored sporting events, we had billboards, train ads and all that. But then if somebody called into us, we'd have to vet the lead and find an MSP, and it just didn't work. So we took all of that money and put it into resources for our partners, and it's been a much better growth model for us.
Well, not to blow smoke up Mike's ass, but he is the largest MSP in the borough. I would say in the tri-state. You'll correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm not in the
and he's also
tri-state,
all
but
right, not
in
in the
the
tri-state,
borough.
but definitely in the borough. But in addition to that, he's also one of the most recognizable brands.
Yeah.
So that's compliment
they've
to
helped
Datto
with
that
that.
they've helped to do that. So that's an amazing partnership that you guys have created there because he's the fastest growing brand in Staten Island. That's why he's sitting here.
That's the first time I met Mike. It was probably 6-7 years ago doing an MDF event.
Yes.
I came down here, and that's when we met, and we stayed in touch ever
There
since.
was a guy with an ankle bracelet or two.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Where was it?
Tiki Island.
Oh, everybody's an ankle bracelets. I mean, you were
talking
probably
about
the
like
outcast.
Yeah, I came in.
You were like, what the hell is
I was
going
thinking
on?
it was like a
into here.
cybersecurity thing, and all of a sudden, Tiki.
It was security, literally security.
Yeah. The
Sounds
door's
first
locked
class.
behind me for some reason. I'm like, what are we doing?
That's all right. As long as you knock twice, you're
Now you
in.
can't. Now you can't leave.
And then, with the MDFs, what would be, I'm a tee this one up for you. What's the most interesting MDF money you've given to an MSP?
So we have a pretty flexible program, and I listen to a lot of things. But this one MSP from Staten Island, sitting across from me, said, I got an idea. I need $2,000 to buy potatoes. I said, Mike, what are you talking about, buddy? And he sent potatoes out to people. You have to tell the story. Potatoes.
You
And
never-
didn't some
you never
people
saw
try to
that
eat them?
campaign?
I never heard this story.
Okay,
And
so
he got business out of it.
and I got the idea from I was at DagoCon, and it was another one of the Shark Tank guys was there.
Herzvik?
It was, and he talked about one of the things he never invested in was there was a website called Potatogram, and they came on Shark Tank, and you actually would pick a gram and they'd mail a potato to someone instead of like a postcard. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is brilliant. So I asked for $3,000. We picked 100 businesses on Staten Island. And now I started looking up the logistics
That's an expensive
of it.
potato.
It was expensive to do it. So I said, I can't do it. I can't afford to do 100. So we ended up buying them ourselves. I had my two texts at the time, right on it. Don't be a couch potato, techiegeek.com, or let you be a couch potato, techiegeek.com. And we basically, there was a 3-part campaign. So the first thing we did was mail just the potato.
How do you mail a potato? You can't put a stamp on it. So
basically,
let's
I ended up putting a padding envelope with a postcard in there that was branded "Be a couch potato. Let Techie Geek take care of your IT."
And somehow I feel like that's not even legal. Just say,
Well, it's legal.
why can't I bring a seed
So
home
then
and
I
you could
call
ship
I
potatoes?
call one of my lawyers, Jim Thompson, who we're friends with, and I tell him I'm getting ready to mail potatoes. He goes, "Oh no, I'm sorry.
I'm getting ready to mail potatoes.
I came up with the idea. He called to say good job with that. Right the day before I was getting the mail potatoes, I said, "Oh my God, I noticed a little mold on one of the potatoes
That's
because
what I'm
it
saying.
took about a week for us to write everything."
Again, why it's illegal to
So
mail potatoes.
I printed labels and put on the potato, potato not for consumption.
Otherwise, you would have got sued.
Right. And that's what Jim Thompson, when he received his potato, called me and said, I got to say,
I didn't receive a potato. We weren't friends.
Maybe we weren't friends, and then I followed it up so we mailed everyone a potato, and then we followed it up with phone calls, and then we mailed them a swag box 2 weeks later. So it was a multi-phased approach. I remember being at an SIDC event. One guy looked at my logo on my shirt, Techie Geek. Are you the guy that mailed me a potato?
And you were like, yes, I am.
Yes, I am.
And did you get that book of business?
Yeah, we got that business we didn't, but we did get business out of it. And to this day, there's people, if I talk to, like, you mailed me a potato.
That's great.
That's again back to you guys. That's brilliant. You're selling your sellers, right? And you're getting support to people that could unlock something that's super creative and different.
Is that really creative?
Yeah, I mean,
I still
Weird,
I have
creative.
I
yet
never
to have
sent
another
anybody
request
Never
for
heard of it.
potatoes.
I'm Irish. I never send anybody a potato. I would hoard them. I think I wasn't working around here.
There is one business owner on Staten Island that told me she made potato chips with that potatoes.
It said do not consume.
It said do not consume. She's like, it was fine. I cut
Yeah,
it
of
up
course.
and we made potato chips. And I'll tell you after who that was.
I could almost imagine who it was.
I gotta guess.
Going back to what you mentioned, you guys just touched on the conferences. So now conferences are huge. You guys throw those amazing conferences. Can you talk a little bit about the development of them, the execution of them, how you get all these amazing guests and guest speakers to be a part of it?
Yeah, that when you talk about branding, that was what Datto did best. Like Datto made itself the cool company, the company you wanted to work for. And so the very first, we have these Datto cons every year. The very first one, they had a goal of getting 100 people. This was 2013. And they got 150 people. But instead of making it just a regular conference where you sit there and you get everybody comes up and does their song and dance and clicks through and then the next one, we made it fun. We made it interesting. We brought in keynote speakers. We made it so you weren't just listening to vendors do their pitch. There was some thought leadership there, right? And then it just continued to grow and continued to grow. And the next one had 250, next one had 400, next one had 700, and now we're up over 3,000 at these events. And it's the one, and the brand behind it became this is if you're going to go to an event,
That's the one.
this
to go
is the
to.
one to go to, 100%.
With the two girls, I don't get to travel. The one event I go to every year is that one.
Right, and it's
love
phenomenal. And now, as an outsider who has no idea, outside of knowing you, what any of this really is, right? That's something that even in my industry we know because that's one of the go-to events that's on the calendar. that
Everybody
you wanna
just
be
wants
at.
to know like what's going to be different this year.
Right.
What are they going to do next? A couple
look
years
forward
ago,
to it.
yeah, 2019 we had kept it. There's only about 15 people at all Datto knew we had this, but we had Snoop Dogg, who was going to open up the set day 2 and do an introduction to our founder at the time, Austin, and come out and do one song. And we kept it a secret, even internally, nobody knew. And I got a picture in the green room. I could show it. Me and Snoop. He smelled of the
I was gonna say, he was
flower
smoking.
that. Oh, we had to get
was in
him
the green room.
Yeah, we had to get him a double sweet and he wanted a smoking room. And
of course,
like they don't make those in hotels anymore. So we just upfront paid the fine,
right?
And just had them. And the place went nuts. And it was like that little investment. I mean, not a little investment. It was a 6-figure investment to get him to do one song.
Yeah.
But it was like people still, that was 2019. People still talk about it. So like, how are we going to outdo ourselves? This past year, we had the after party. So everybody thought the event was over. And they're like, it was good. There's no surprises. We brought out Shaquille O'Neal to be the DJ. And he
That's
was a
crazy.
DJ because he is apparently a DJ.
Shaq Diesel. I got the CDs. Come on,
this guy knows.
What are you kidding me?
Yeah, he comes out.
Watches Shazam too.
I'm the hooper, hyper. I know the
Shaq
words.
came out. I was like, that's the surprising. I left and drove back to New York.
course you did.
He doesn't- yeah. But it was, I mean, it was nuts. So, now we got to try to top that one, We'll be in Miami, so I don't know. We'll get Will Smith or
It's a
something.
good town.
And me
Good
personally,
city.
I loved like at the last keynote, they had Mark Rober. Who are you familiar with him on YouTube?
Yes.
And the Glitter Bombs, and I was like a kid. I was like, oh my god, I am like a kid. But when I heard he was announced, I was emailing Mike. I want to meet him. And somehow, and I commented to Rob Ray at that point, and apparently he's the one that got me on the guest list. I thought it was you.
He's full of crap. I got you on that guest list.
So talk about how he was a keynote
on.
speaker. I want to hear that
I
story.
want to hear that too. But the go-to talent that's coming up in the future is Will Smith.
I don't know. I said Miami. It's the only thing, he had that song, Miami. Maybe we'll get him
Welcome
to
to
sing
Miami.
that.
I like
he
how
needs
Dan
to
pulled it
he
back.
needs to rebrand his image. So maybe he starts at DattoCon and
Good luck with that.
yeah.
A boxing match with Chris Rock.
Yeah.
Back to our geek.
No,
Yes.
so talk about, I'm curious, because I didn't believe you. I know I got the call. I watched you on social when you were at the conference. And then we actually had the Advance publish a beautiful piece about you that you gave a keynote at such a high-level event, a national event. But I still don't know, even though he's here, how or why they asked you to be a part of it. So I want to hear that backstory.
So am I telling the backstory?
Whoever.
Or is he?
Let's hear
Go ahead. I
Mike's
want to see
like-
your impression of it. And this is international too, and we have people from all over the world.
So in the IT industry, in the MSP industry, somehow they think that I know what I'm talking about.
There you go.
So many vendors actually ask me to help be on their billboards. And it's pretty funny because when conferences, I don't get to travel, but people will send me pictures and you literally walk through the show floor and there's my face here, there's my face over
on the
there.
bullet banners, it's crazy. Like I know that guy.
On video screens, there's videos of me, and so I again branding. I'm branding myself as well, and not only here to my consumer, to the business owners, but also to the industry because I want to be a valuable part of the industry to get information before others to elevate me. But they asked me to help, so yeah, they asked me for this DagoCon to help do a sit on a panel to speak about Dago SaaS Defense and Dago SaaS Protection, which is a product that they were pushing out that we've been utilizing, and we helped to develop that product. We were on their advisory board for that product before it was public released to everyone, and it was great. We got to speak in front of MSPs, talk about what we learned about during the pandemic, how it was able to help make businesses be protected. And then when I found out Gary Vee's talking at the same conference, I'm like, I'm talking at the same conference
And I
as
didn't believe
Gary
you.
V.
Yeah.
And I'm only joking. He is kind of a big deal. So I could joke around him because we're friends, but that was probably one of the biggest accomplishments in the last 2 years, I would say. For Tech Geek, or no?
absolutely.
Because that was
crazy.
phenomenal.
It also comes down, look, the industry, you're in a tech industry. There's not a ton of folks that are comfortable presenting on stage. And even the people that think they will, when you sit up on that stage, it's
all over.
It's a daunting thing. So, having a relationship with Mike for so long and done presentations with him, and he has the ability to be able to describe the products or how he positions them in a way that's digestible to folks and doesn't get into the weeds of all these things. He'll just glaze over. And so that's kind of what we look for across all of our speakers that can be engaging. Because when you're there at any conference for several days, they get long. I don't care,
Yeah.
So you want to keep it entertaining. That's why we do things like panels, bring partners up. But you want somebody who can engage the crowd. So when you're sitting there trying to put together who you're going to get, I knew I was comfortable with Mike. It was like, I don't have to worry about Mike clamming up. It would have been funny, though, if you did.
He's such an
You just
introvert,
couldn't-
though.
You couldn't talk.
So as his agent, are we booking him this year? That's where I'm segueing. So Miami, what's the date? We'll talk to his wife.
It's
We're going to get
actually,
him out
yeah,
there.
I think it's usually in what? Is it September or October?
It's October. First week in October in Miami.
Can we announce it here live that he will be a part of it? Live on this podcast. The mics aren't even on.
They'll sell some tickets. Let's see what ticket sales are doing.
You coming?
Push
If
them
you're there,
Can
I'll
we
go.
do the podcast from there?
If
See,
you're
that
there,
would
I'm
be
going.
fun.
Yeah, we'll bring the M2 podcast down
Let's make it
there.
happen.
Let's do it.
You give
I
a
like
keynote.
Miami.
We'll give a keynote. We'll podcast
No,
live.
not we. You give the keynote. Well deserved. You get your spotlight.
I see. I already told Nicole we have to go to Miami. She was yelling at me. I was like, we got to turn this because in October we're going to Disney World as well. It's like, this could be a work trip right to Miami, right up to
yeah.
Disney World. She's like, yeah, I'm taking the kids to DagoCon. I was like, why not?
I mean, that's every kid's dream.
South Beach. Yeah, right,
All
exactly
children.
right.
Hey, kids, before you see Mickey and Minnie, we're spending 3 days on a tech conference.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. But no, and it was great. And then it was funny, though, when I walk into DagoCon, when you first walk in the main room of the vendor displays, obviously they are the first booth you come into. And there's 2 pillars with TV screens playing videos of me.
Of course.
Of course. And so the only thing I would like to suggest to Dago is maybe the speaker should get a speaker badge so we
felt
differentiate
slighted.
ourselves. I went up to the woman. I'm like, hi, I'm a speaker. She's like, oh, okay. I was like, yes, is there a different lanyard or something? She's like, no. I'm like, do you have anything that says speaker? She's like, no. So Fabian, my account manager, ran and got a Sharpie and wrote,
Excuse me, what do you have to inflate my ego?
Yeah. This is, yeah. Do you know why?
I've seen nothing to inflate my ego here.
Yeah. They spend money. So let's get back to branding and things I've learned. I will say, when you talk to people, they say that I give decent swag. And I've learned that also by watching things they do. Now, I wish I had their money because I would up my game for swag. So maybe you could give me some more money.
Just keep sending potatoes.
My swag. Yeah, swag.
Keep sending potatoes.
When I got to go to the stock exchange with Mike, and they gave all of us who were there Dago branded luggage,
Yeah, with the phone, with the charger in it.
phone charger.
Nice touch.
Like every DagoCon, they give you backpacks, laptop bags branded, which we do have Techie Geek laptop bags. Hopefully you're using yours today, Dan.
I haven't got
Right
one
around
of
the
those.
corner.
Me neither. No one
right.
cares about
I'll
that.
give you one.
It's in your office.
He's the guy giving you the money. Give the kid a bag.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I'll
hell
give
are we
you a
doing?
bag. You can have anything. Take a statue on your way. But no, they have the best swag, and swag's important because they're smart, right? It's the whole. Why can't you give everyone a backpack? The same reason I'm giving Dan a backpack because every business he's walking into has now got the Techie Geek backpack on it.
That's it. And when you think about swag, you got to be smart. It's something that somebody's going to use, it has your logo on it. When I go on a plane to a conference, if I go to DattoCon, I'm flying out of LaGuardia, I'm going to see several people with Datto backpacks from previous ones. They wear them all the time. That's why cups are really good. You know, it's something that you're going to have in front of you all the time, like that luggage. So not only is you're going to be staring at Datto's, logo all the time, but now you're out on a plane and people see it. I get people ask me all the time, "Oh, I think we have a Datto at our office because I have my Datto backpack on the airplane." Or I knew somebody who worked at Datto, and the branding becomes more than just something cool. A lot of vendors will spend time and money on something that's cool just in the moment. Here's a kit to make an old fashioned or something like that. You spend all this money, you make that old fashioned, and it goes in the garbage, right? But something like a backpack or a hat or something like that, even spending money on good pens, it sounds silly, but we spend extra money on our pens so that you're using a Datto pen all the time.
Because you see it as an investment, not as an expense.
Yeah,
That's something that I think is overlooked often, especially in a small business community.
In our space.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta invest in yourselves, right? And that's something that's
An investment.
easily becomes something that's put to the back of the books.
What would be some examples of bad swag?
We've probably had a couple bad ones too. I think we spent a bunch of money on these multi-tools. You remember those multi-tools?
Yes.
Yeah.
They look like
Swiss
credit
Army
cards.
knives.
Yeah, but it was like and we thought they were cool. We couldn't give these things away. And then they were supposed to be, you put them in your wallet, but you can't get on the plane with half the time. So and that was like the think tank of folks that actually aren't really out at the events thought it was cool and it looks cool. Like, oh, look, you could open cans and there's a screwdriver on here and all this stuff. Nobody used it. So, and we see
And it was probably expensive.
they were very expensive. So we wound up shifting them and giving them away at MDF events because we had this huge inventory and they were heavy.
Is that why I got them?
Yeah. I'm like, oh, Mike, I got these great things for your MDF event. So I'm
Ship
still
your
in
gross.
sales. I still could sell multi-tools.
Yeah, and we spoke about that in previous podcasts. Swag is very important. And I walk through show floors and I'll see like slinkies and something someone's going to rip apart and throw out.
Yeah.
Junk you bring home for your kids.
Exactly right. I'll tell you right now, the event I was at earlier this week, we had Rubik's Cubes, which seemed kind of cool. And people were throwing it back. And I'm like, this is, nobody cares about these Rubik's Cubes. Like the nice Tervis cups that we had, somebody will walk around with that Tervis cup all the time, Like that makes sense. Even I got my Dado branded chapstick, or it's Kaseya branded chapstick in here. Seems silly, but you know what? I'm going to have this. How long does chapstick last? A while. And so wintertime, I got to, somebody will be staring at that, and it costs you not a lot of money. So it's not necessarily, you have to go and buy the Rolls Royce of swag. Right. But you also can't look at it. Some people look at it, like you said, as just an expense. And is a backpack really going to get us business? Yeah, it's going to get you business from that person, but also the branding of what's the new backpack you're coming out with this year,
It's the Luke's copy motto. Advertising pays, it doesn't cost. Have you ever seen that on all of his invoices?
No.
No?
I never
No, but
printed from him.
that
That's
makes
what it
sense,
is.
though. I like
all
that
of his
quote.
invoices, and he's the largest printer on Staten Island.
Oh, yeah?
That's on every invoice. That's where it says. I always laugh when I see it. And Dan just said it. That's why it's funny.
And we talk about that. And that was one of the questions we had for you is, and what you just said is advertising, marketing, branding, it should be an investment, not an expense. At Dago, being a VP, how do you look at your return on investment? How do you look to know that everything you're doing is truly an investment and not an expense? And when you find an expense, how do you cut it off?
Yeah, I think that's really important, the tracking. As much as it sounds like, we're doing all this cool, fun stuff, you have to be able to track ROI. And we do it through our marketing development funds is pretty easy. We give you money. We see who comes to that event, who closes business. There's our ROI. On things like, event swag and things like that, we're looking at, we call them marketing qualified leads that come from that event. So our MQLs that come from it. And the reason why it's important to track is because a lot of things look good on paper, but until you start looking at the results, you don't know whether that money was well spent. I wouldn't have thought the potato campaign was going to do well, but you track it and it did well. There's plenty of times when we've made splashes. To my point earlier, we sponsored the women's volleyball national championship or something, right? And spent a bunch of money. And it was, we'd see at the time, data all around, the thing. And we got nothing out of it, A, because there was no way for us to track it. But B, it's like, what is the target audience? Our target audience is our managed service providers who are looking to sell. Like, what was a women's volleyball tournament going to do for us? So again, that's when we pivoted. So, it's good to take chances on different things, but we're looking at ROI on our side in a couple of different ways. Are we bringing on new MSPs, new managed service providers to start reselling our product? And are we helping to the existing partners grow? And for the best bang for our buck is actually to get our existing partners to grow. It's it's less of a cost. The cost of acquisition of a new partner costs more. We need to do it. But if you look at where our growth comes from, it typically comes from the top 20% of our partners that we've gotten to go.
That's great.
Very interesting model.
So, well, listen, we Mike Depalma from Dado, we really appreciate you coming in today, coming down from Connecticut, sharing some of your personal stories and just industry knowledge. So thank you for coming down again. Co-host
Thank you, Mike.
Greenfield,
Yeah, you got it.
and Anthony Rapachulo.
That's a wrap.
And I'm Dan Ryan.
Three companies, disrupting what you know about marketing and branding. Welcome to M Squared.